Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. If there is one sound that is music to a cowboy's ears, it is the sound of a lively cattle auction. Here with more on a program designed to drive up those bids is our Austin Moore.
We have some really nice wheat pasture this year. We've had some rains this fall. So right now the cattle market and the cattle industry in the state of Oklahoma is good. We're selling wean calves off the ranch for record high prices. Value again for stock production is at all-time record highs. So, so things are good right now.
And good means busy here at the Cherokee Sales Company in Alfalfa County. 1,700 head of cattle were sold today in Cherokee, but 400 of those had a premium because their ear tag says OQBN.
Sale went good. First time they ever had one here at Cherokee. So, anytime you have a first of anything, you've got to get it advertised and people in here. And I think it went well the first time we had it here.
Those calves have to be weaned for 45 days if they're homegrown calves, and have 2 rounds of vaccinations, which include the IBR BVD respiratory type vaccine, plus have to have 2 rounds of a blackleg or a clostridial vaccine, as well as we'll have 1 round of pastorella vaccine. Those cattle will be dehorned and castrated, and again broke to a bunk and to a water tank. We won't lose a lot of weight on those in terms of moving those cattle around, and they're not going to be stressed out. They're healthy, ready to go.
That means healthier cattle that spend less time in the buyer's pens becoming acclimated and more time in the field gaining weight.
The last 2 or 3 years, I've bought all that I feel like I can afford and that are in my weight range of buying. I like the program basically because it encourages the cow-calf producers that are feeding me my stocker cattle to do a better job of managing their calves before I get them. I have less death loss, better health, better weight gains. More often than not, when we've bought those cattle, we can take them home, make sure they're familiar with us and their surroundings, and within a week or so we can turn them out on the wheat if we've got wheat ready to turn them out on. They start gaining right away, as opposed to the just wean cattle. You've got to keep them around 45 or 50 days. Day before yesterday I talked to a couple of fellas, and that's what they kind of do, is they kind of follow the OQBN sales around. And they've strictly said, for wheat pasture calves, they've quit buying things that weren't OQBN certified.
And the guys that have bought preconditioned calves, started calves like that, they know what they're getting. The value, when you figure that backwards at an 1,200 pound calf and figure your death and your vaccines and your time and the time of getting weight back on your cow, if they really put a pencil to it, they're worth a lot of money.
The difference in these cattle from those that haven't been started is clear here in the sorting pens at the auction.
They may have been handled a few more times on the ranch, and so they're less stressed out when we do put them on the truck, when they do get to the sale barn and really nose to nose and co-mingled with thousands of other cattle. And they do a really nice job. Our vaccines are working and working well, and so these cattle they're just prepared and ready to take that next step, whatever that next step may be.
I'm around my cattle a lot. You walk around them more, and they're broke to come to feed truck, feed bunks. You get out, you look at your cattle for sickness or whatever. When they come here to sale barns, they're used to seeing people, and they're easier to handle. The guys get along with them better.
For sellers like Charles and George Bush, the benefits of a preconditioning program are obvious and lasting.
It's been a really good program, and I think the people are starting to realize that when they go to put these cattle out on wheat, and these cattle are already 3 weeks ahead of the cattle that's not weaned. A lot of them just the trucks go straight to the wheat fields and dump them out, and they're growing.
You get that status when you go into a sale barn with your cattle, they'll know that name, that them cattle are started or won't get sick. they'll know when the cows come through that the quality and the condition is there.
Joining us now is Eric DeVeest, ag economist here at Oklahoma State University. Eric, over the years we've seen a $6 to $8 premium on OQBN cattle. Is that holding up this year?
You know, that's holding up real well. In fact, we're seeing premiums higher than that this year, although we've only had 3 sales and a couple of them were smaller sales. We're seeing real strong premiums, particularly for the 4 weights and into the 5 weights, and most of the sales are holding up pretty good in the 6 and 7 weights.
Okay. This year we've had a number of new sale barns come on. Cherokee's one of those. How are those affecting things?
Well, you know, when a new sale barn starts out, they really need to build numbers. If you think about this from the perspective of a buyer, they want to be able to take a pot load or pot loads of cattle either out to wheat on those smaller calves or to a feedlot on those bigger calves. And if they're going to buy a pot load of cattle, they want them to be homogeneous. If they're doing value-added cattle, they want a load of value-added cattle. Otherwise, they're just going to have to treat them the same anyways. And so it can take time for those to build up. Even so, we're seeing pretty good premiums at those barns. One thing that producers don't take into consideration, sometimes they'll complain that, you know, on my heavyweight cattle, I might have got $4, $5 premium over another heavier calf. But they have to consider the value of weight gain. The OQBN program requires a 45-day preconditioning period. And so when we're comparing, say, a 7-weight calf that's OQBN, the baseline is a 625-pound calf that was late weaned and came straight to the sale barn. And so when you add on the value of added gain, the profit is still there.
All right. So for producers going forward, looking at the program possibly for next year, do we expect these numbers to hold up? Do we expect the program to stay in coming years at these levels?
Well, right now we're seeing premiums that are significantly higher than the past couple, 3 years. And it just makes sense. If you're going to insure a $400,000 house, you're going to pay more to insure that than a $300,000 house. Well, it's the same thing here with these cattle. We sold some calves this last week for $250 a hundredweight. That calf has more downside risk if it gets sick or dies than a calf that sells for $150. And so what we're seeing is that the buyers are willing to spend a little more money for that insurance. It'll be a few years, if you listen to my colleague Darrell Peel, it's going to be a few years before these prices settle back down because the cattle supplies are so tight. So I would expect the premiums to hold up pretty good for the next couple of years.
All right. Good information, as always. Eric DeVeest, ag economist here at Oklahoma State University.
Certainly old man winter is on the way, and that means that hay feeding season for beef cow operations also will be starting very soon, if it hasn't already begun. Often the question arises, how much hay do I need to take out to a pasture full of cows? Well, let's go through some calculations that might give you a little better idea of what to expect in terms of the amount of hay intake that beef cows will have. You see, so much depends upon the quality of the hay. If we've got some poor quality grass hay, and I'm talking something there that is 6% crude protein or less, in that case, cows consuming on a voluntary basis will only consume about 1.5% of their body weight on a daily basis. Now, if the hay is much better quality, some really good, say some fertilized Bermuda grass hay that's 8 to 10% crude protein, now those cows voluntarily will be able to consume 2% of their body weight on a daily basis. And finally, when we get into something like alfalfa hay or silage, then it goes clear up to 2.5% of body weight. When we give you those figures of that percentage of body weight, that is based on 100% dry matter in the hay. Well, even though this hay looks very dry, it still has some moisture in it. And so generally, grass hay like this that's been stored will be in the neighborhood of 7 to 10% moisture still. So we have to calculate that as well. Let's use the example of that 1,200-pound cow that's going to have a calf next spring, and let's calculate through if this is some good quality grass hay and she's going to consume 2% of her body weight On the 100% dry matter basis hay, that's 24 pounds. But when we figure what it is on an as-is basis, including the moisture, now we have to add that other 10%. So it brings it up to about 26 pounds. I wish that that's where it all ended, but we still have to calculate wastage. It depends upon what kind of feeder we would have. If we've got a really good feeder and we're really careful about hay wastage, we might have as much as 6% wastage. That brings us up to another 2 pounds of hay that we have to consider being fed each day. Now we're in that neighborhood of 28 pounds, and quite frankly, for most folks, I think it's probably best to round it off to about 30 pounds of actual hay being fed to 1,200-pound cows during the winter months in order to get the hay into them that we want. So that's a good place to start as you're thinking about the hay needs of these cows during the course of the winter. Around 30 pounds per head per day is probably a good place to consider as you're thinking about how many big round bales go out to the pasture for the cows that you've got out there. We hope that helps you in terms of understanding the hay needs that you'll use this winter. And we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Joining us now is Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist. And Kim, let's just kind of kick things off this week looking at the world picture.
Well, the world picture is kind of mixed. You look at Australia this week. I've got one report that Australian production is going to be higher than we thought it was last week. And then this morning I got another report that said it was going to be less. So I think Australia, the point is that they're going to have a good crop, probably low in protein, but relatively good production. Argentina, no news on it, Argentina's not concerned is how much wheat they're going to produce, but what's the political situation. It's all messed up for exports. The reports are that China will probably import more wheat than we thought they would a while back. That's positive. You look at the European Union, their production is reported to be slightly less than we expected a couple weeks ago, but still 3% above last year. And you look at Canada, they just finished harvesting 1.22 billion bushels. In the last 20 years, they've only harvested 1 billion bushels or more 3 times, or this is the 3rd time they've done that. Mixed situation going around the world, not much impact on prices.
And here at home, any better news to report?
Oh yeah, I think so. Stocks are relatively tight in the U.S. Hard red winter wheat ending stocks just under 200 million bushels. Last year, 343 million, the 5-year average 337, so tight hard red winter wheat stocks. U.S. 565 million bushel ending stocks, 718 last year and 773 average. Tight stocks there, but right now our price has been trumped by average, 6.56 billion bushel world ending stocks, and that's above average, which was last year 6.45 billion and the average of 7. So right now world stocks are trumping tight U.S. stocks, and our prices have been going down.
Okay, and then the result on prices?
Well, you look at, we're watching the March contract now. We've lost 60 or 70 cents. We've got support in that March contract at 6.94, resistance at 7.31. It looks like it's starting to build a floor.
Okay, let's switch gears to canola and the harvest 2014 price.
Well, canola's looking really good right now. That harvest price for that you can forward contract for is $9.75, and it's holding in that area, and that's a bushel.
Okay, and finally a quick look at corn today.
Corn, we got all kinds of corn. We got corn everywhere, almost 1.9 billion bushels ending stocks. The funds are short. They're saying we could get a little rally on corn prices out of that, but the general consensus is corn prices are going to grind lower.
All righty, Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. For all of those wondering when winter weather would arrive, The wait is over. We were treated to a blast of cold that swept into Oklahoma Monday night. A map of air temperature from Monday night at 9 p.m. shows the cold air crossing Oklahoma City. In the green map areas, temperatures hovered around 60 degrees. The blue map areas range from the high 40s down to the low 30s. By Tuesday morning, the cold air was entrenched across the state, with 5 Mesonet locations recording 18-degree lows. Eric, Butler, Alva, Breckenridge, and Buffalo. Every Mesonet site was below freezing. Idabel was the warmest at 31 degrees. Wednesday, folks woke up to even colder temperatures. 53 Mesonet sites fell to 18 degrees or lower. El Reno was at 12 degrees. Wednesday morning was a harsh change for cattle. In El Reno on Monday, cattle were enjoying a cattle comfort index of 75 degrees, balmy for November. 38 hours later, the cattle comfort index was at -2 degrees. Now that'll shake even the toughest bull. Here's Gary with a check on our rainfall and drought status.
Thanks, Al, and good morning, everybody. As Al mentioned, we've certainly had some cold weather come in. We've also had some dry weather start to creep back into the state. So let's start off with another look at the latest U.S. Drought Monitor map, see what it shows for us. The new drought map released on Thursday reflects some of the rains that fell last week, although there weren't quite enough to make any dents in the big drought impacts down in southwestern Oklahoma. We also see a little bit of a decrease in southeastern Oklahoma and also an increase up in northwestern Oklahoma. However, it's still better than the map from 1 year ago. As you can see here, we had 100% of the state covered by at least severe drought, and 71% of the state was covered by at least extreme drought. Remember, last year at this time, we were in the midst of the driest May through December on record in the state of Oklahoma. So it might not be so great down in southwestern Oklahoma and up in the northwest, but it's certainly better over most of the state, so we have that to be thankful for. Now let's take a look at the 30-day rainfall statistics from the Oklahoma Mesonet. We have started to get dry over the last 30 days, with less than an inch falling over parts of the state, mostly in western Oklahoma, but we have had parts that have seen greater than 8 inches. But in general, it has gotten a little bit dry. We can see that from the percent of normal rainfall map from the Mesonet over the last 30 days. It shows where the relief has come and where it's still missing out on the critical drought areas across far western Oklahoma, especially for that southwestern quarter where exceptional drought remains. So we have the same message that we do every week, it seems like. We need that rainfall to spread to the west. We get a little bit in the southeast, a little bit over in eastern Oklahoma, but we need it in those other parts of the state as well. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
For the past couple of years, there hasn't been hay for producers, but this year there actually is a little bit of hay, and we have Dave Allman here to talk about the quality of the hay. Dave, what are we finding across the state?
Well, we had tremendous hay yield and a lot of cool season and warm season hay put up this year, and so we're back to having some inventory, which is a good thing, because for a couple of years most of the hay that we fed had to be brought in, or a lot of it did. Like most years, there is a wide range in quality. There was some hay that was put up early, and the rain allowed us to get it put up in good shape, and so some of the forage tests coming back looks like some really nice quality hay. And there was quite a bit of it that the summer rains kept kind of pushing harvest further back into the summer, and so it got fairly mature before it was harvested. So a wide range of quality, like we see, I'd say, in most years.
And every year a hay test is important, but especially this year.
Yeah, I think so. You know, with feed prices and particularly protein supplement prices being expensive as they have for the last several years, you know, there's going to be cases where people have really nice quality hay. They might not realize how nice it is, and if they would just do a little bit of homework, they could discover that they just don't need supplement for a set of, say, gestating cows. And there will be other cases where someone's traditional supplement program won't be adequate, and they'll be a little bit disappointed because their hay quality may be lower than they expected. But you know, with just a few dollars and a little bit of pretty simple homework steps, you can figure those things out and have confidence in what you plan to do for the winter feeding program.
Now, is there a target area for protein for cattle?
Well, let's just take a gestating cow, for example. The target there is about 8% of diet dry matter as crude protein. Okay, so nice quality prairie hay is usually around 6. So it's almost always a little bit shy. Protein, you almost always have to supplement some protein. It's a matter of how much.
Right.
Is it 6 or is it 3
Right.
in the hay you harvested? Bermuda grass, for example, I mean, it'll range from, say, a high of 14, you know, maybe down to 6 or 7. So it can be adequate. But you don't know unless you actually get it tested.
And once you have that test, there's actually some computer programs out there, some software that can help you find out how much supplement you need.
Yeah, and we offer one through our extension group at Oklahoma State. It's called OSU Calculator, COW Calculator, and it's very simple, user-friendly, it's free. There are other programs available, and I just encourage people to find one that they're comfortable with. But Calculator, for example, is very simple, and just in a few steps you can plug in your data from your test, and then that becomes your own library when you save that file, and then you can look and see for whether the cow's a 1,200 pound cow in late gestation, or whether she's a 1,500 pound cow in early lactation, with high or low milk. You can make those real simple adjustments and then do just a really good job of seeing whether the protein and the energy in the hay is adequate or whether it's deficient. And if it's deficient, then plug in some options to see what maybe the lowest cost, most practical supplementation program would be.
Well, there you go. And we actually have a link to more information about that on our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Hi, welcome to Shop Stop. Today we want to talk about first aid and first aid kits.
Okay, you may be out in the field and you may be doing a simple job, but there's still the possibility of injury no matter how simple the job may be, and you always kind of need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, you don't want to be wrapping up a busted fingernail that's bleeding in a grease rag, so you might want to have some Band-Aids or some gauze and some tape available. Maybe a kit in every tractor or combine, as well as your truck.
Right. So, get you a small kit, some Band-Aids and whatnot. Throw it in all your equipment, and that way you're ready to go for whatever may come along. And also keep your cell phone handy in case it's even worse than that.
So, there's some safety tips here on Shop Stop. We'll see you next week.
Introducing a new tool to help with prescribed burning, our SUNUP intern Mindy Andrus talked with Extension Fire Ecologist John Weir.
Managing a fire means managing people and weather, both of which can be unpredictable.
Well-conducted fires in the field are the result of well-written fire plans. And they help us put it down on paper and think all this process through. So when the day comes to when we're ready to light that fire, we have already thought it through in our head, and we've got a plan of action to follow to help us make that burn safe but also effective so we can meet our goals and objectives.
Planning your burn may be as important as the burn itself.
The elements needed in most written burn plans or some kind of description of the burn unit, along with probably a little bit of a description of the topography and possibly vegetation that's present in that burn unit. We need a list of parameters that we're going to follow are probably contact information. Then we need a map of an aerial map of the burn unit that we can draw off, our ignition plan, so how we're going to burn this. Some type of smoke management plan. List of adjoining neighbors that you need to contact. People that were there on the burn, attending the burn, have a list of that. Another good item to have on a burn plan is a go, no-go checklist. And that's just some type of checklist that you have where you list that, have I called the local fire department? Yes or no? Did I call adjoining neighbors and let them know? Yes or no? Is the weather conditions going to be within my prescription that I wrote down? Yes or no? You know, do I have adequate equipment to conduct the burn? Yes or no? And if the answer is no to any of these questions, then we're not going to burn.
Visit the Extension Publications website and you'll find a new fact sheet to help you plan your burn.
We have an example fire plan that's filled out so that you can see how one is actually filled out, what items may need to be checked off or done with that. And then we actually have a blank fire plan that can be used. You can make copies of it, or you can fill it out, cut it out of the fact sheet. Or the other thing is you can go online and get an electronic copy of this fact sheet and fill it out electronically.
For a copy of the fact sheet, visit your county extension office or our website, sunup.okstate.edu. For SUNUP, I'm Mindy Andrus.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime online at sunup.okstate.edu. You can also follow us on YouTube and other social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.